Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the latest Hurricane Tracker app video update recorded Monday evening, October 3rd, 2016. We are tracking Major Hurricane Matthew. Matthew is a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 140 miles per hour. You can see the eye very clearly here on the infrared satellite loop. It is moving off towards the northeast mainly, and it does look like the eye does have a chance of making a direct landfall here on the very southwestern extreme coast of Haiti during the overnight hours. Regardless of whether the storm makes landfall, we're still going to have very heavy winds coming here in the southwestern portions of Haiti, as well as possibly 15 to 25 inches of rainfall. And unfortunately, it looks like we could have some devastating flooding effects for Haiti and portions of western Dominican Republic as well. These areas to the east of the storm are under hurricane warnings. And over here in Jamaica, since you're on the western side of the storm, it's a little bit drier. There's not as much rain that'll be moving in, not as much storm surge, and also definitely not as much wind. The hurricane warning has been downgraded to a tropical storm warning. And then through the day Tuesday, Matthew will continue moving off towards the north or northeast and should track right over the eastern tip of Cuba, where hurricane warnings are also in effect. So if you're in this region during the next 48 hours, unfortunately, it looks like there's going to be some severe impacts from Matthew. Not only life-threatening flash floods, but storm surge up to 11 feet in some areas, and of course, hurricane force winds. But the good news is, I do want to point this out. It's like the core of the strongest winds may stay. Most of the strongest winds will stay offshore, although southwestern Haiti will get clipped by at least probably 80, 90 mile per hour winds. So, excuse me, it's been a long couple of days, and we have some even longer days ahead, unfortunately. Well, let's flip over to the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. And if you've been following Matthew, you'll notice the track has shifted significantly to the west today um, over the last couple of forecasts they've had out. And I do want to point out the track through the next 2, 3 days is still pretty much the same. We have hurricane warnings and watches extended up into the Bahamas as well. And wherever you see the M, Matthew is forecasted to be a major hurricane with winds of at least 115 miles per hour or more. Over the last really 24 hours, computer models have been aggressively shifting towards the west. And even with the afternoon runs since this track has been issued, we've even seen a couple of models shift even a little further more towards the west, closer to the Florida coast, unfortunately. So, one thing we know for sure is that Matthew is going to get, pretty close to the coast. We just don't know exactly how close or if it's going to be able to make a direct landfall in Florida or the Carolinas or maybe even southeastern Georgia. Those exact details of where the storm's exactly going to travel, what the impacts would be, are not going to be, we're not going to be able to iron those out for another day, maybe even 2 days. The National Hurricane Center did state that in their advisory tonight or by tomorrow morning, we could see hurricane watches possibly hoisted for some portion of the Florida coast or even the Florida Keys. So we will bring that information to you as soon as that happens. But this far out, don't focus on the black dots, focus on the cone. The center of the storm could track anywhere within this region. And right now, based on the latest guidance, it looks like it's going to track more towards the left side, the western side of the cone, unfortunately. Now, as you get within 3, 4, 5 days, there's not as much room for the models to drastically, flip to a forecast, let's say a hard right out to sea, or go due north from here. Once you get within 3, 4 days, the models usually start coming to a consensus. The reason the models have been shifting towards the west is we have a strong ridge of high pressure. It's typically referred to as the Bermuda High, and the winds around that flow clockwise. So if you have a hurricane or tropical system down here in the Caribbean with a Bermuda High located to its northeast, the winds around that are going to tend to push the system towards the United States coast. And the models have been under forecasting the placement of the ridge and how strong the high pressure ridge is turning out to be. So uh, unfortunately, there is no quick path to the east because it is being blocked by that high pressure ridge. And if models are still underdoing the forecast on that ridge as of now in the next day or two, yeah, I could see a track directly into southeast Florida. I don't want to see that. I want to see the center stay offshore as much and as long as possible. But definitely today we realize the risk have dramatically increased for the southeast United States coast. And I do want to go over a couple of the latest model runs just to kind of give you some context here. So this is let me start with the GFS run from this afternoon from 12Z. The data was run this morning and it came out this afternoon. So I'm going to put this in motion through the next couple of days. And the first thing I want to point out is this red area out here. This is the edge of the strong ridge of high pressure, the Bermuda high pressure ridge. And you can see as we went forward in time, let me go back here, you can see that ridge kind of extending from east to west, kind of pushing on the storm, so to speak. Okay, and the more it pushes on the storm, the more west or northwest it's going to go. So I'm going to go out to, let's go out here to 84 hours. You can see the GFS run from about 8 hours ago had the center here. Now I'm going to go to the most recent run, which was just a couple hours ago, and watch how the center is now even closer to the coast. See that? Basically right on the coast or right offshore from the West Palm Beach area. And I'm going to put this in motion. You can see how it forecasts the system to just basically ride up along the coast as a category 2 or 3 hurricane and all the way up into the Carolinas, then eventually out into the open Atlantic for the time being. If this track were to verify, unfortunately, this would be a multi-billion-dollar disaster. I don't want to see this happen. But unfortunately, if you look at the strength of this ridge of high pressure, look how it's nosing to the north and east of the system. This is kind of blocking the system. So this means there's less resistance for it to turn north, northeast, or north. So as long as this high pressure ridge holds, the system's going to go further west. If it were to hold a little bit longer than forecasted, watch it break down here. See it break down, kind of move to the east. If it were to hold just a little bit longer, the storm could make a little more progress inland like that. But that's still an option. We'll just have to see over the next day or two. The next several model runs are going to be very critical in determining exactly where the center of Matthew will likely end up. And this is just one model, but I'm going to flip over to a couple other here. European model, which is a very highly regarded model. It's not as close to the coast, but it will run again in a few hours. We'll see if it ends up being closer. The Canadian model, it's also been shifting west. And let me go to the NavGem model. NavGem model has a southeast Florida landfall. That's a western outlier. The JMA it's a Japanese model, very close to the GFS. So there's a growing consensus that we will see at least tropical storm force winds for the eastern half of Florida if the system sits just offshore, and of course increasing odds as well of hurricane force winds impacting some Florida or some portions of the southeast United States coast. For those of you up here in New England, let me just flip over here real quick if you don't mind. I've been getting a lot of questions from the Mid-Atlantic and the New England states, and rightfully so here. I want to go to let me flip over to the GFS American model. You can see a little better here. I'm going to go to the winds way up in the upper atmosphere. These are typically known as the steering layer, and I'm going to go out later this week and into the weekend, and you're going to see this trough of low pressure here over Iowa and the Midwest. It's going to be moving towards the east, and it's all going to be about timing. If this trough can move in quick enough, it will be able to shunt Matthew towards the east, and the GFS has been trending that way. The run from earlier today pretty much brought Matthew right up the coast. Now it's bringing Matthew east of New England and up into the Canadian Maritimes. It is possible that if the trough is tilted, let me turn on my drawing tools here real quick. If the trough is tilted from northwest to southeast, that's called a negatively tilted trough. the winds out ahead of the trough would flow towards southeast to northwest, and that could help to actually pull the storm into the northeast if that were to happen. So this is going to be a very close call. It's something we're going to have to watch. Any potential impacts further upstream from the Carolinas won't be until this time next week. So we have lots of time to watch it, but I do see that the GFS is trending towards the European. Let me go to the European. Once it is past the Carolinas, moving out into the open ocean. But here we go. Even the European shows those of you in southeastern Canada will need to watch this closely as well. All right, we'll have more updates. We'll be here all through the week with updates on Matthew. Hopefully this video gave you a little more ideas to why the models have been changing and what some of the possible scenarios could be down the road. Thank you for tuning in to the Hurricane Tracker app video update and for using our service. Have a great night, everybody.